Hello and welcome to the latest midweek edition of the Sharesify podcast. I'm joined, as always, by James and Steve. How are you, chaps?
Very good.
All good, Ian.
Good, good. And Steve, I sound a bit like a broken record, but another choppy week of tech.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to have been led largely by what's been going on in the South Korean market, the Kospi. And I think it just sent jitters through other tech markets. Bear in mind, the Kospi is still up in the last month about 5%, but it's up year to date almost 100%. Now, put this into
Is it?
context, Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, really big in HBM memory, right? So we understand this dynamic. They represent more than half the index weighting. So the Kospi really is not a measure of South Korean the economy, the stock market. It's about memory. And so
Right.
be really interesting to watch this evening when Micron Technology have got their earnings to May. It'd be interesting to see what they say. They had a big bump earlier in the week. Or was it late last week? Simply because of what Tim Cook was saying. We've mentioned this on our website, etc. So it'd be interesting to see what reaction goes to their results overnight and after the close of play.
Yeah, that's fascinating, actually, what you said about the Kospi. So it's basically, another tech proxy. People have been playing that as much as they have the Nasdaq or the QQQ. Wow,
Yeah.
fascinating. So James, highlights for you this week. Quite a bit of consumer news.
Yeah, some surprisingly strong prints from those consumer names, particularly at the small cap end.
Yeah.
So Gear for Music, another confident update. That has benefited from a tailwind from the demise of some competitors. So, I'll be keen to see if they can keep that momentum up. An upgrade from Vertu Motors this morning. That's despite weak consumer confidence and all the noise around zero vehicle mandates and that sort of thing. And then some blistering numbers from ProCook this morning. Bit of a turnaround going on there. This is the kitchenware brand rolling out new stores. But again, a little bit of a cautious outlook. So I'm not getting too carried away. But I guess the big story there was the takeover bid for Ramsdens, which is one we flagged on the pod before. And the buyer is First Cash, which also took out H&T last year. So a very eventful week so far.
So that is a bit of a
Wow.
kind of a sort of a play on gold, isn't it, Ramsdens? Because obviously they deal in lots and lots of gold. So presumably the buyers must think gold prices being slightly more depressed than they were a few months back. Maybe they're thinking this is a good opportunity to play a longer sustained growth in the gold price.
Yeah, that's a great point you make, Steve. And I think in the commentary from the Ramsden board, they said, they sort of want to offer shareholders the immediate cash now rather than wait for that gold price induced upgrade cycle maybe to peter out. So I think, it's, take the money and run at this point.
I hadn't realised they were the same buyers that took H&T private last year.
Yeah.
This
Texas-based company.
consolidation, this consolidation, it's coming. And actually, you lucky boy, you're a Ramsden's holder as well, and a Virtue holder, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, there's a bit of noise around Virtue as well with Constellation Automotive has upped its stake. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. That's the company that also owns Marshall Motor, We Buy Any Car, BCA, I think is the other one. So interesting times in the automotive retail sector too.
Crikey, yeah. Well, look, this M&A has been spreading. We had about 3 weeks ago, I think there was rumored to be an interest. There was a US firm called Castle Lake said it might make a bid for easyJet. The difficulty with that, and we talked about it at the time on the podcast, is that Castle Lake's owned by Brookfield Asset Management, and it's American, and you can't, as an American, own a majority in a European airline. Well, they're kind of getting around that by hiring two guys who used to be airline execs, and they're Irish nationals. So as Irish nationals, they're going to set up a firm. They're going to own the majority. Castle Lake will own the minority. easyJet have rejected the bid. It's a £4 billion bid, so we're not talking small change here. This is quite a big bid. Interesting to see how that one plays out. Then we had the railway pension scheme making, I think, 4 offers in total for IP Group. Now this is the Science and Technology Intellectual Property Group, and it's the group that owned Oxford Nanopore before it spun out some onto the market. Now Railpen, I don't know. The first time they made an offer, they didn't even have the money put aside to do the deal. They didn't have any plan whatsoever, but they've been a long-term shareholder. And I think what they want to do is they want to turn it into a much bigger platform to monetize the IP that the group owns. So that's another one. Then today we got Prologis in the US. That is the world's biggest industrial real estate investment trust. And it suggests Prologis is quite big in logistics. It's about $140 billion market cap. And they proposed an all-share takeover of Segro at £9.25. Now, that sounds quite good because the shares were trading around 7.40 or around the £7 mark earlier this week. And it's level with the NAV. But the board, I think, quite rightly have said, you're not really factoring in the growth that we've got. And it's, I know reasonably well, I've looked at very, very steady earnings growth. Blow the doors off. It's kind of 5-6% growth, but incredibly predictable. And I think that's what Logis like, the predictability of this income stream. And they can see that going on, project. It's got forecasts out to 2028 on its website, and it's completely consistent with the historic trend. So I think that's where they're going for. But whether, and somebody suggested to me actually this morning, whether it wouldn't be a good idea for CEO to maybe team up with somebody else as a defense. And that Schroeder European Real Estate has said it's going to have a managed wind down. That's a huge surprise because I've been talking with Jeff O'Dwyer all year, and he's been very bullish about the prospects for the properties they've been buying, particularly in Germany. So to me, that's a big surprise. But there's another merger potentially on the cards. Is there, Steve, or isn't there?
Well, I mean, it's speculation only, but we can't go through podcast, can we, without mentioning SpaceX and the Elon
Had to
Musk
happen.
premium, right? I
Had
mean,
to happen.
this is not a new news story, in fairness, but the idea that Musk might try to merge Tesla with SpaceX, so it's been knocking around for a good while now, anyway. But it does seem that there's a growing feeling amongst the analyst community that this is going to happen at some point, either probably sometime next year. And the question is really is what are the benefits for each group of shareholders?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't necessarily have lots of commonality. But if you look at the undercurrent of what both firms are doing, they're both really moving into AI in their own ways. And I think that is going to be a really big lever for or justifying a merger. And also think about what Starlink can do, satellites around the world. Talk about Tesla and its navigation of its cars, self-driving cars. There could be some big crossovers there as well. So there are lots of value added potential, but when it comes to fruition, who's to say?
Yeah, tricky one, isn't it? What else have we got to look forward to this week then, James?
Yeah, so more reads into the consumer tomorrow, Ian. So we've got the Halfords full year results. I think we've also got Moonpig, and there's a Card Factory AGM. So whether they put out a statement, I'm not entirely sure, but there'll be another, a good window into how the consumer is feeling. What about you? What you got your eye on?
Me, not a great deal, I have to say. I mean, Steve, is anything popping up for you? I see
The
Wise
one
is
that I mean,
due to
on
report.
this side of the pond, I mean, the Wise got results later this week, and it's the remittance payments platform. It's been growing really rapidly. In terms of revenue, in terms of its earnings, it's got some really impressive fundamentals, return on equity, return on capital employed, etc. But I don't know if the market just doesn't quite trust the business model. And this reminds me of another business a few years back called Earthport. They worked in the remittances market. They ended up getting bought out by Visa, but on pretty depressed valuation. And I just wonder if remittances, transferring money from across borders effectively, is an area that investors feel very comfortable with. So it'd be interesting to see what they say, what kind of growth they put up, and can they justify maintaining the share price where it is.
Yeah, and I know there have been some questions over some money transfers. I think they've been asked by European regulator and the Belgian regulator to sort of give them some details on some financial transactions. But James, actually, what I am busy with tonight actually is our very first webinar, with AVI Japan Opportunities and JP Morgan European Growth and Income. Now, JEGI, as it's known, put out some very, very good results this week. 5 years now in a row, it's beaten the market, and by some distance. So I really urge everybody, if you can, register for that. Details are on our website. Ask the fund managers lots of questions. It's totally free to take part. Starts at 6 p.m. this evening.
And just to make the listeners aware, the system is you just send in your questions via an email service, effectively, and then Ian will pitch those questions to the fund managers in real time. So anything that's on your mind, this is a great opportunity to talk Japan, to talk European equities. And one of the big questions you might wonder is, is there any chance that the European discount to US is going to narrow? That would be an interesting point to hear from.
Absolutely. Yep. So we look forward to getting questions, and hopefully we'll see you all later on. Cheers.
Cheers.